Hello, and welcome along to the next in this series of videos that we're doing regarding setting up and using Chocolatey in an organization. Now, in the last video, if you've been following along, we looked at setting up a client machine that's got Chocolatey agent on it to report into our CCM service so that we can start seeing that rich information about what's installed, what's outdated on a machine, but in a central location. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start utilizing some of that information to remediate the problems that are on these machines. So let's go ahead and just jump in. So since the last video, I have made it so that all of the machines that I've now got in my environment, so there's a total of 7 machines across my environment, I've made them all report into CCM to get a bit of a richer flavor in terms of what's going on. So from a dashboard perspective, we can now see that there's a total of 77 installed packages, 31 of which are unique. There's a total of 3 outdated packages, and 2 of those are unique. So the great thing about CCM is that from a high level overview, I can click on software and I can find out what packages are outdated. So in this case, Chocolatey GUI and the Nexus repository is also out of date as well. But on top of that, if I drill down into Chocolatey GUI, I can find out which machines it's installed on, and these are the machines that I need to remediate. But this is a great piece of information here that you can also export into PDF and Excel and get reports that you can distribute within your organization about. Because, for example, Chocolatey GUI being installed on the Choco client machine makes sense, but for the Chocolatey GUI to be installed on the Jenkins machine, which is really a server machine, that's probably not meant to be there. So we got a couple of things that we could remediate there. We could actually say, well, let's uninstall the Chocolatey GUI package from that machine because it doesn't make sense for it to be there. But on the Chocolatey client machine, let's definitely get that upgraded. And that's where CCM Deployments comes into play. So Deployments is up here on the left. So I'm going to click on Deployments, and what it's going to bring us to is a screen that gives us information about all the deployments that we have across our environment. At the minute, I have none, right? So it would tell us all the deployments that are in draft, which ones are ready, which ones are active, which ones are completed. So we've got rich information, and again, all of this information can be exported into PDF and Excel where applicable. But in order to create a deployment, I need the concept of 2 things. I need to know the what and the where. So the what is what am I trying to do, and the where is that action taking place. So if I click up here and I go to create a new deployment, it's going to take me to a screen to provide that information. So the what is what steps do I want to carry out. So in this scenario, in this deployment, I want to do 2 things. I want to upgrade the Chocolatey GUI on the Choco client machine, and I want to uninstall the Chocolatey GUI from the Jenkins machine because it doesn't make sense for it to be there. And I can do all of that in a step. So I'm going to click on Add Step here, and what it's going to pop up is, so I'm going to call this step as Upgrade Chocolatey GUI. And there's 2 options here. I can either do a basic command, a basic deployment step, or I can do an advanced one. An advanced one is literally PowerShell. If you want to write a complete PowerShell script to do multiple different things, that's where the advanced section comes into play. There is some tips here in terms of best practices in terms of grabbing the exit code from that so that it can be reported back into CCM deployments that a particular deployment has failed. But in this scenario, I'm going to look at doing just a basic script. So in a basic script, it becomes a little bit simpler, and we only have 3 Chocolatey commands to pick from. I've got an install, an upgrade, and an uninstall. So in this one, I want to upgrade Chocolatey GUI, and I'm going to give it the package name. So in this case, it's Chocolatey GUI, and I can attempt to hit save, but I'm going to get a warning, and that warning is this step contains no target computers. I haven't given any information about where I want this action to be taken. Now, in CCM deployments, all of that is driven by the concept of a group. Now, at the minute, I don't have any groups configured in my system, so I can't actually do this. So I'm going to hit save anyway. I'll probably get another warning, but I'm going to say yes, because I'm going to go off and I'm going to create some groups. So in this release of CCM, there's a little bit of manual effort in terms of creating these groups. There have been requests about having groups and tying them to Active Directory objects. That's certainly now on the roadmap. And there's also the concept of automatically creating groups based on maybe looking at the outdated reports list and the computers that are associated with it and having it automatically create a group for me. All of these are great ideas, and we've taken that feedback based on what we've shown in CCM Deployments, and we're absolutely going to do that at some point. But in this release, there is a little bit of setup to get that to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a couple of groups. So I'm going to create one ahead of time for the other thing that I really want to do, which is installing Notepad++ everywhere. So I'm going to create one called All Computers, and I'll just give it a description of all computers. And I'm literally going to say, bring all of those computers into this group, and I'm going to hit save. Now the information here, this warning legend here, is if I had exceeded my license count, or if one of these machines hadn't been opted into CCM Deployments, then I can't actually deploy an action to those machines. So they would come up here color coded depending on what error state that they are in. But in my scenario, all my client machines are opted in for CCM Deployments, and my license count allows me to deploy to all of these machines. So I'm going to go ahead and click save here, and then I'm going to create another group, because a group is one or more. So in the scenario where I want to do an action on a single computer, I still need a group. And that's really where the concept of an automatic group really comes into play. And like I say, that will hopefully be in a future release of CCM. So in this one, I'm going to say Choco client machines. Choco client machines. Can't type. And I'm going to put that as a description. So I've only got one of these at the minute, but obviously I could have more of those. So I'm going to put that Choco client into this group, and I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to have a final group, which is for my, let's just call them the infrastructure servers, because they're likely to have the same setup. So in this scenario, for the minute, I'm just going to bring in the Jenkins one, because that's the one that I really want to remediate, but I may actually bring in the Nexus repository and etc. into this group as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. So now if I go back to my deployments, and I can go back and edit the one that should be sitting in here in draft. So I'm going to click on edit. I should maybe give this a title, a more meaningful title. I'm going to call this remediate servers, and I'm going to go into this step and I'm going to edit it. So this is the upgrade of Chocolatey GUI. So we know the what is to upgrade it, and the where is on the client machines. So I'm going to pull this group into here, and that's where we want that action to take place. And then I'm going to have another step here, which is going to be to I think I put remove, I think I hit caps lock there, remove Chocolatey GUI. So again, I'm going to do a basic step, and that basic step is going to be uninstall, and the package name in this case is going to be Chocolatey GUI. And this time I've already got the group that I know, so it's my infrastructure servers group, and I'm going to go ahead and hit save there. Okay, so I've now got two steps. One of the important things here is if, depending on what I'm doing, I may need to reorder these steps. So you can absolutely pick these up and move them around. One of the other things I didn't reach into, but it is documented on the website, is there are failure cases, and that's what these show advanced filters are for. So depending on what you're trying to do, so in my scenario, I've got kind of two distinct actions. So I'm upgrading Chocolatey GUI on one set of servers, and I'm uninstalling on another set of servers. But if those two steps were interlinked, and you wanted the first one to happen before the second one was attempted, then you can control that via these exit codes here. So we only run other deployment if it's successful. So in my scenario, if the first one fails, I can do the second step because they're not interlinked. But if you were doing a deployment where it was to, say, for example, bring down a website, do some stuff and then bring the website back up again. If the bringing down of the website didn't work, then the deployment of the things into that website wouldn't make any sense, because it would most likely fail as well. So you can chain those steps together into an orchestration pattern for the steps as well. So that's something to think about. But for my scenario, I'm happy to say that I want to upgrade Chocolatey GUI on my Choco client machines, and I want to remove it from the other machines. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and that should take me back, or I can go then back to the deployments, and then I have the option of saying, well, let's move this to ready. So it's been in the draft stage. I'm going to hit move to ready. Now I'm going to get a question. Is this something you really want to do? I'm going to go ahead and hit yes. Now at this stage, it's in the ready state. If I make any changes to that deployment, maybe add a step, change a step, it will go back to the draft stage. So at the minute, there's no concept of approvals for a deployment, but in a future version of CCM, there will be the concept of requiring an approval before a deployment will actually happen. So to allow for that, that's where the jumping back to the draft stage is important, because if someone has approved it and it gets edited, then it needs to approve again. So that's building in that workflow. But for now, I've got a deployment, and I want it to go, right? So at this point, I am going to hit the Run Now button, and it's going to move the deployment into an active state. So at this point, I get a little bit more information about what's going on. So I can drill down into the information, so I can see which steps are in the active state, which ones are in the ready state, and then I can drill down into a particular step to see where that's going to get activated on. So in this step, it's only happening on a single Choco client machine, and what's going to happen is when the Choco client machine is made aware that this action needs to be taken, it will move that from the ready state into the active state, and it'll start doing that work. So what we should see as we go through this is happening live. So what we should see, in theory, is that, assuming that everything is still ticking over, is after a short period of time, the step should then be picked up and start to be acted on. And the good thing about CCM Deployments is that it will bring all of that information back from the Chocolatey client machine into CCM Deployments, so we can look at it. So that's what this log section is here. So if we hit refresh again, there should be, it's still there. If it doesn't happen in the next little while, we'll start digging into what might be going on. But there is a period of time that until the next sort of when the client machine basically comes around and says, is there anything for me to do? So that's really what we're waiting for here. And then what should happen is, once it picks it up, it will go from the ready state into the active state. So I'm hoping that all of this is going to work. But let's have a quick sanity check that the client machines are still reporting into CCM. So I can know that from the last check-in date time. So if all of these are up to date, which it doesn't look like it is, so let's go back and see what's happening. So let's have a look at my deployment again, and we'll see what could be going on. Let's click into my remediate servers deployment plan and see where we're at. So this one's still active. So that's a step that's still active, and what we're waiting on, oh, it has gone to active. Sorry, so it is doing the work. So now at this point on the Choco client machine, it's switched to active, which means that the Chocolatey client is now executing that work. So it will now be performing the upgrade of Chocolatey GUI on that machine. So if I refresh again, it will, on the Chocolatey client machine, it will be reaching out to the Nexus server. It will be downloading that Chocolatey GUI package, and it will be performing the installation. So at this point, while it's active, it's doing that work for us. So that step shouldn't take too long. So hopefully, if we keep refreshing this enough times, it should go to success. It'll either go to success or failure. And then based on that, we will see a log file entry here to say what happened. So let's try again. Let's try refreshing it. It went to success. Okay, so now we get the log file. So we can click on the log file and we can see what happened. So in this case, it attempted the Choco upgrade of Chocolatey GUI. It found that there was a 0.17.2 available, and it performed that installation. So if we needed that information, we could export that to a zip file and download that log file to review back later. But with that succeeded, it will then go back to the next step in this deployment. And the next step in this deployment was to remove Chocolatey GUI. So this one's gone to active as well. So in here, it's still a ready state. So we're waiting for that Jenkins machine to come along and say, is there anything for me to do? And once it's picked that up, it will do the uninstallation of the Chocolatey GUI from that machine. And what will also happen is, by virtue of the fact that an action has been taken as a result of a deployment, the Chocolatey agent will report back in immediately again. So in other scenarios, based on your configuration, the Chocolatey client machines will only be reporting in their current packages every 30 minutes. So, but when a deployment happens, it will immediately report in the currently installed packages and the currently outdated packages. So at the end of this deployment, we should change those KPIs. So we should no longer have any, or we will still have an outdated package, and that is the Nexus repository package, but that we haven't remediated that as part of this deployment. The only remediation was to upgrade Chocolatey GUI on the Chocolatey client machine, and then it was to remove it from the Jenkins machine. So if we hit refresh again here, while I've been talking, it's still there. We're going to get close, hopefully. If we look back at the dashboard, then this number has changed. So that was 3 before. So if we look at software now, we can see that Chocolatey GUI is still reported as being outdated on one machine, but that one machine is now Jenkins. So before we had the Chocolatey client machine in here, so that part has been remediated. And then we can see that additional information if we go to the computers and we look at the Choco client, we'll now see that the Chocolatey GUI version on this machine is now 0.17.2, which is exactly what we want. So let's go back to that deployment and see where we were. So let's, oh, is it updated? It has, so we've missed it. So it's no longer an active deployment, it's now gone to a successful deployment. And if we drill down into this, the overall success of that deployment plan is success, which means that second step must have also succeeded. So now if we go back to the dashboard, now we should see, now we've now got only one outdated package, and that outdated package will now be the Nexus server because it's the only thing that's been outdated. Okay, so the final one I want to do, and I want to kick this off while I finish off my kind of closing this out. I want to create a new deployment, which is to install. It's a either VSCode or it is Notepad++. So let's add a step. So the what that we want to do here is we want to install. Let's just install VSCode. Okay, so we're going to install VSCode, and we're going to do that as a basic step, and we're going to do an install. And I'm fairly sure that that's just called VSCode, but that won't work. So let's chocolatey.org/packages/VSCode. So that won't work. And it won't work because we don't have that package in our internal repository. So there's a couple of things we need to do here. It is called VSCode. I'm just curious about what the dependencies are. For the sake of this video, if this has a dependency on a certain package, it'll take quite a while to internalize it. So we might not use this package. We might use Notepad++ instead. I suspect that this has got a dependency on Yeah, let's maybe just use Notepad++ instead. So let's just check this. Notepad plus plus dot install. So its dependency tree I don't think is as long. Let's just check that though. If I can scroll down. Went too far. Click on dependencies. Chocolatey core extension, so that's fine. So in order to get this package into our internal repository, we're going to use our Jenkins setup. So let's go to HTTP Jenkins, and that was on 8080. And I'm going to need to get logged in there. So the password for that is over here. Copy, paste this in there. I'm going to sign in here. So I want to internalize a package from the community repository. So I'm going to build with parameters, and I'm going to give it the package name of Notepad++. Yeah, let's just go with that. So Notepad++, that's what it was called, right? That's the install package, but there is a metadata package as well, which is there. Okay, so let's go ahead and build that. So what that's going to do, that build is going to run. That is going to reach out to chocolatey.org. It is going to download and internalize that package and any of its dependencies. Those dependencies, that package and its dependencies are going to be pushed up to our Nexus test repository. That's then going to trigger another build in Jenkins, which is going to sync our test repository to our production repository. And once that's done, I can then create a deployment, which will deploy Notepad++ onto those machines. So while this build is running, we should hopefully have, oh, we're not auto refreshing, that's why. So we're not seeing it. So there's a build running here. So if we look in the console output, it should be doing that work for us. It's off doing that stuff. So while it's doing that, let's create this deployment. So we're not going to use VSCode. We're going to use Notepad++. Let's do this, ++. And then this is going to be Notepad++. And the target computers for this one is going to be all computers. Okay, so that gives us the what and the where. So we want to install Notepad++, and we want to install it everywhere. Now this demonstration is really bringing together everything that we've done in this huge series of videos. So we have making use of our Nexus repository, we're making use of our Jenkins server, we're making use of CCM, and we are downloading and internalizing that package. Once we have that on our production repository, then we can do the installation of that package onto this machines. So for this one, I'm going to say move to ready. It's going to say, are you sure? Now I'm not going to quite put this to active yet until I know that this is finished. So it has downloaded and internalized Notepad++. It's currently now synchronizing our test repository with our production repository. So let's have a look at the console output of here. So if you're interested in this part, there was a video earlier in the series that walked through exactly what's happening here. But what we should be able to see is if we go up to our Nexus repository, which is on 8081. Oh, that didn't work. 8081, hopefully. And what we should be able to see once this has finished is, let's browse, and if we look in our test repository, it should have the Notepad++ packages, which it does. And what we would then want to see is it in the production repository, because that's the only one that our client machines have access to. So if we look in our production repository, has it quite made it there yet? Not quite there yet. So this synchronization script is still running, but once this is finished, we will have that package in there. And then from there, we can kick off our deployment, and everything will run. So while that's at the point of being completed, so I am going to click the Run Now button on here. And I think I missed it because I scrolled. But if I click the Run Now button and click Yes, that'll set it into the active state. And if I drill down into that while I am checking our production repository again, so our production repository, refresh, if we see that it's there, so they're there, or it's in the process of being there. So now with this step, so this time we've only got one step in our deployment, but this one step has multiple target machines. So there's 7 machines that are currently in the ready state. So what's going to happen is, as those machines start querying CCM for active work that it needs to do, we're going to see this being deployed in parallel, essentially, out to all of these machines. So if we go back here and hit refresh again, we should start to see our donut chart filling up as it's doing some stuff. So this is going to be the final demo in this video. And then I'm trying to think, so the next in the series of videos about Chocolatey and the organization will really be about utilizing Chocolatey GUI to do self-service installations, because up till now it's all been about the infrastructure and getting things set up. What we'll then start using is Chocolatey GUI to perform installations as a non-administrator user, and we're going to see how that's going to work. So what we're seeing here is it's now this instruction to install Notepad++ has now been sent out to 3 of the 7 machines, and it's actively being installed on those machines as we speak. So we'll see this donut filling up. It's now been picked up by 5 machines, and I have to be honest, I could sit and watch these kind of things all day. I love watching these get deployed. So it's now been successfully installed on at least one of those machines. So we can scroll down and we can see that on the CCM database machine that it started doing that deployment installation on 10 minutes past 9, and then just under a minute later it's installed. I can look at the log for that and I can see that it all succeeded. So all of this information has been captured. It's been taken from the client machine up to the server. So we've got all that information exactly where we need it. And if we go back and refresh this again, one of the requested pieces of functionality in this area is for having this page automatically refreshing as it's doing work, because at the minute I'm manually refreshing it, which is not ideal. So that's one of the things that we have had some feedback on, and we will be implementing that in a future version of CCM Deployments. But for now, it's now gone out to 5 of them. 5 of them were successful. And if I hit refresh here again, see where we get to. 2 are in the active state, and then hopefully they will report in. Oh, we're getting so close. And then, so they were picked up. So in just under a minute, it seems to be just under a minute it takes to do the installation. So if we refresh this just in the next short while, I suspect that they'll be finished. Oh, one more left to do. But if we return back to deployments, what I wanted to show was that you get all of that rich information for completed deployments as well. So this one was our installation of Notepad++. It's now succeeded. We've got all that information. It's available when we need it to. We can export this to Excel and PDF to hand that out to folks in the organization who need to know that information. And because we did that action via deployment, that information has been immediately reported into CCM as well. So there are now more installed packages across our infrastructure. And if we drill down into software, we'll now find Notepad++. So if we filter this based on Notepad, There's Notepad++. So we installed the meta package. So it actually installed the .install file as well. But if we click on this, we get all that rich information about where it's installed and so on. So hopefully this is useful to you. CCM Deployments has been a while in the making, but it's now there, it's now ready for usage. So I would really encourage you to take it for a spin and then provide any feedback that you have. I personally think it's a great addition. I am slightly biased because this has been my main scope of work for a while now, but I'm really happy to see it out there being used. So that's the end of this video. Comments, if you have any, feel free to reach out, and on Twitter. And for now, that's it. So the next video will be Chocolatey GUI self-service installations. Thank you very much for listening.